Hey, my name's Damien. Today we're going to be talking about upscaling, specifically stuff like DLSS, FSR, and I think there's another one with X, but I can't remember what the X one's called because I didn't write it down. However, I think that this kind of kills quality long term when it comes to gaming and incentivizes developers to do some kind of shady stuff with optimizations. Uh, because what it should be is a really cool technology to allow lower end cards to kind of make do at a more modern resolution. You know, people upgrade their monitor to like 4K, right? This should be technology that lets them go and go, okay, I can kind of make do with this, right? I can kind of make it happen. What it shouldn't be is games releasing with forced upscaling on. So even people like me who are still playing at 1080 load into the game and it kind of looks like dog shit. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you've ever used upscaling on anything lower than like 1440p, and even on then, I mean, I wouldn't always use upscaling. It kind of makes everything look just like muddy, makes it look anything that's like higher detail, like leaves, foliage, detailed cloth physics. They all just kind of get yucky. Um, Kind of a problem aside from upscaling, right? For example, games have kind of been releasing in pretty shitty states for a little while now. Some examples off the top of my head are if anyone remembers the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, the game was practically unplayable for a lot of people on the consoles. And if I'm not mistaken, its PC performance was pretty bad. It also had some general problems, but and then there's a game that I was actually really looking forward to because I loved the original uh, Dogma 2, which I'm not sure if you saw anything regarding that game when it released, but the FPS dropped to like 30 on most machines, sub 30, stuttery. Whenever you entered any area with like any amount of NPC density, it was completely disgusting. The game was nowhere near ready to launch. So like it was completely thing. Um, Now, besides that, the game was pretty fun. There were some other points that it was kind of lacking, but that's not the point of this video. The point is the internet's new favorite monkey game is released, and I gotta say, it looks really fun. I've been watching a friend play it. I haven't played it myself yet. It does look really fun. The downside is practice that I really hope doesn't become a common thing, like I kind of mentioned in the title, uh, upscaling. Now, I have no problems with upscaling being an option for players to use. What I have a problem with is when a game doesn't let you turn off upscaling and is built so meh that it can't handle 1080p without upscaling. That's like a baseline take for me. I feel like if you can't run 1080p 60 frames, what's the point? What's the point of upscaling? Because it looks like shit if you're doing it at 1080. I'd honestly, I'd be afraid to have a higher resolution monitor at this point because it barely runs with upscaling and barely runs in this case. It, like, for example, on my rig, I have like a 7800 XT, so like mid high end and AMD card. And in the game benchmark, I was getting like 60, 80 ish with upscaling at 1080p. So imagine what I would be getting without upscaling 1080p or with upscaling if I, God forbid, wanted to play in 4K and had a really nice expensive monitor to, really run things through with. That would just be like embarrassing, no? Like am I crazy? Uh I feel like upscaling is kind of we're getting to a point where the industry is kind of taking advantage of the for lower my glasses. I can't get the sheen, man. This glasses sheen is just cannot get it to go away. I think there's like coating you can get for your glasses, but I don't have that, man. But the industry is kind of getting to a point where we already had pretty poorly optimized games, and I mean, it's gonna happen. I mean, at the core, it is a lot of studios are making games entirely for profit, where the entire point is to get as much money as possible out of it. So quality, player experience, none of that matters. What matters is, can we make a quick buck? And the quickest way to make a buck is to not spend a lot of time doing game optimizations, not to spend a lot of time, say, optimizing the way you handle graphics rendering, optimizing the way you handle, logic calls, making sure that you don't have a bunch of bloat, um, have to keep frame rate stable and to keep it high without upscaling is seeming to it's starting to drop a little bit, which is really concerning to me. Um, and kind of as a parallel to this, there's another technology that's a part of upscaling, and I think DLSS I think AMD and Nvidia cards both have a means to do this. I know FSR has frame generation. I think Nvidia had something like that as well, because I'm sure they don't let AMD just get away with doing anything they haven't done or don't plan to do. But the entire point is, so with upscaling, okay, you've already upscaled, so your resolution's fake, right? And it can look good at higher resolutions. I'm no evil anti upscaling person here. Um, then there's frame generation that comes along with it, though, and the frame generation is kind of fake. They're only really useful if you can already run the game at a decent frame rate. Because if you makes the visual smoother, right? It makes what you're looking smoother. So in cinematic games or games with like a frame input, like it doesn't feel bad to like, oh, I'm only playing 30 and my inputs still feel fine. In that case, frame generation, it can make the visual experience smoother, but those frames don't exist. So if you input during one of those pretend frames, it doesn't feel as good. You're not actually getting like that real time responsiveness, and that's my big complaint with frame generation. Is just, I really hope we don't get to a point where we're just perma relying on it, because not my thing, not my deal. Um, already talked about higher resolution being useful. Talked about the internet's favorite monkey game, which I'm very tempted to make a video on the monkey game. But when it comes to upscaling, I guess point of the video, reiterate my conclusion. Please optimize games. Please release finished games. Please take the time, make them run well. Don't rely on AI upscaling. Don't rely on anything crazy. Polished. Give it to the consumer. If you want to use upscaling to assist with super high resolutions, the game's really graphically intensive, mainly difficult. Create a world where it's possible to be played 4K, 60, or super high frame rates, 1440p. You can hit the 60, but you just have a hard time. Uh, Higher, right? Those goobers with 144 hertz monitors who need every pixel. They're just having a hard time. By all means, because it looks all right. Genuinely, I've used upscaling on higher hertz or higher resolution monitors. My personal rig is 1080p. I don't particularly care much for the higher resolution, but that's entirely personal. It is nice. Like, I'm not saying it's not. I just don't have the moolah to just throw on that. But I've been over to friends' houses who have some higher end monitors, and I've tinkered with DLLs and upscaling on their rigs, and it looks way better than on 1080. You turn it on to 1080 and it looks like mush. Uh, Takeaway: don't force upscalers for 1080, please. Okay, thank you. Bye.